And so Derek is very much remembered and very much thanked for all he did. Let's see what we go here. Yes, Catriona Mundell. Not so well known, maybe, except to those who do know, because it was Catriona who was with Clive Cavan, who reintroduced Lily's Christian astrology to the world in the 1970s and 80s. And lastly, but not least, this lady Maria K. Sims, who's very much loved in a similar way in America. So all these people have moved on and are with us today in spirit. Before I look at the chart and interpret the chart, I want to give you a little bit of lesson in magical errors. I've been thinking about this a lot just over the last 24 hours, and it seemed to me when someone pointed out to me, you got the time in the chart wrong. And I thought, well, wait a minute, what is a magical error? It is the subconscious telling the conscious mind you've got it, you haven't thought it out carefully enough. So, in fact, what is it about a magical error? And I've got another one I'll tell you about tomorrow evening that is important. Well, first of all, I don't know how many of you use Solar Fire, but I'm constantly bombarded by people who tell me that I've got the time zone wrong. And it's because they haven't downloaded the software that patch from alab.com that updates your atlas and makes sure you don't make mistakes. So it's probably press escape. Okay. So it's probably I'm meant to remind you of that. And the other thing is that, of course, the talk that you're all waiting for and that follows this introduction is by Deborah Holding. And what this means is that if we take the chart forward to the time that this chart shows, it will be about 20 minutes or so into Deborah's talk. Now, bear in mind that if we actually, the moment I liked the sculpture was the 27 degrees of Capricorn, that is an invalid chart from a horary point of view. But the 3 degrees, which is what this chart is exactly the valid point of a new ascendant. And therefore look forward to what Deborah will be saying at that time, which is a very... No. Well, I don't know whether it be 20 minutes in, it depends how much we get into talking, but like bottom line is I will say when the moment is. I'll put the hand up, okay? So it's all good fun, but yes, okay, let's now interpret the chart. It's inspired myth and modernity, the Robin Hood legacy in Aquarian time, inspired by the Robin Hood archetype. Be happy to know that understanding astral cycles and astrology's many methods is the way to champion righteous understanding and find better ways to live. That's with all the other things that I've said in my introduction is how I feel we chose this moment. Because what is the Robin Hood archetype? Well, it is about this chart. You see the grand trine in water signs, very powerful grand trine between Jupiter, Moon and the North Node, the quench of sympathy and understanding. And at that time also, with the Venus trine Saturn-Neptune, Saturn-Neptune, which is the angst point that we've been going through for the last years and we have ahead of us in the retrograde period ahead, trined by Venus. We come together to learn how to love and how to care in a very difficult situation, which is what Robin really did. He was feared by the bad and loved by the good because he gave up what he had for serving the community. Robin Hood, Robin Hood. It's a song. I don't know if you were young enough, old enough, you'll remember the song, Robin Hood, walking through the glen, Robin Hood, where this very man, farmed by the good, loved by the good, Robin Hood, there you go. So, compassion for the underdog, leading to self-denial and positive actions to redress the balance is what this I think astrology is about to a certain extent. It doesn't have to be. It can be cruel and nasty, but it's at its best when it's at its most caring. Right, so let's just a few words before I get ready, let's open the conference, to talk about the Astrological Association chart and its future very briefly. First of all, note the correct birthplace. It was in a flat somewhere on the Marylebone Road, along from the Baker Street station. Now, if you see it anywhere else, that's where it was. There is one of the founders did tell me exactly what flat it was, but I don't have that information. But it's around about there. When you get just before you get to Baker Street Tube, that's where it was found, in a flat, one of those flats there. And it has Jupiter on the midheaven and Saturn rising, overcoming obstacles to enable structures and methods. This is the founders really chose this chart, I tell you. Then we get the Moon the Moon and Pluto sharing transformative experiences in the 8th house, and friendly. So we're friendly, dealing with very difficult. The AA always punches way above its weight because it's so friendly and so determined to transform and work. It's kept going on that basis. So what about the future? Well, this is very brief. You can spend ages on this, studying with your own methods, but there's a couple of points that come to me. 3 years of practical creativity ahead. And I'm just so impressed with the new board that I'm now leaving. There's such a great young and positive, generous energy on the board. It's great future. The aim is long-term, increasingly transform and irreversible. That's the point. And this is the time to come and work together and overcome. Responsible application can overcome all obstacles. I think there's a great future for astrology, and I think the AA is going to play a great part in it. So that's all I want to say by way of astrology. As it's my last opening as president, I hope you don't mind my repeating yet again my anthem of love, which you can listen to for free on me reading it on the web and those addresses. Roy Gillett, Anthem of Love, mate. Anthem of Love. It is an attempt to think positively about everything and to stop blaming other people for our problems. It was written at a time of great idealism, and I'd love to get that back again. And also, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this either, that this book, Reversing the Race to Global Destruction, was written in 2017 to avert what's going on now. And nobody's read it, so now they should start. Yes. And there's one review there that says, Roy talks a lot of sense in this amazing book. The world's leaders in politics and religion should all read this book before it's too late. In fact, we all need to read it. So it's up to you, but I just hope you don't mind me mentioning it. Now back to the conference. The sculpture it was given to us in 1997 by Branka, an astrologer from Serbia, who had commissioned it with a artist in suburbia, and I've been bringing it to every conference since and lighting it as a way of trying to symbolize a vision that I've always had, that astrology, Charles Harvey, my predecessor, wanted to have a centre for astrology. It didn't quite work out for him. I just feel that astrology deserves a physical place as well as the amazing place it has on the web at the moment, particularly the AA. And I see that as a symbol, as well as a symbol of us coming together every year. So I hope that tradition will find a way to carry on beyond me. And I'm going to light that in a minute. And as I light it, I want you to remember we have a wonderful time this weekend at this great place. May the wise use of astrology flourish, and so may all touched by its wisdom. So I say that, and I'm going to pass over to Wendy, who's got lots of exciting notices to give you.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming, particularly those who have travelled far and wide to be here. It is a special conference because Roy is retiring after several decades. So this is his farewell conference, and we will be having some speeches tomorrow night for dinner, which is now in the Lawrence Suite. where we're having dinner tonight. So I'm really just here to give you the notices on the practical side of things. Most importantly, there is a really amazing leisure centre for those of you who haven't seen it yet. I mean, I heard there was like 8 people in the pool at 6:30 this morning from our group. There's hot tubs, steam room, saunas, so do make the most of that. If you haven't seen it, and it's just over the pavilion there, there's also a games room there as well. So just to please check the program for dinner and breakfast times and things like that. Checkout on Sunday is at 11 a.m. So we will get charged for any minute over. So please do make sure you do check out on time. And tomorrow for dinner it's fancy dress. So it is the Greenwoods. So please do come in costume if you can. So it'll be a lot more fun, and it's more of a sit down dinner and it's a served dinner as opposed to a buffet tonight. Victor Oliver, is he here? Oh, you are here. Sorry, yes. So Victor is just going to give us a very brief intro into what he's doing. This Victor is the editor of our Astrological journal, and of course our new online and part of the journal Stella, and is also going to be facilitating the AI panel tomorrow, the plenary. So please do come along to that. And I'm going to pass you over to him before we have the wonderful Deborah Holding, followed by the Carter Memorial, which is a very onerous lecture. Tonight's going to be given by Israel Ajosi. So thank you, Victor.
This is going to be incredibly brief because I don't want to hold you, Deborah. It was just to acknowledge that a year ago we launched Stella, and I think we can all agree it's been a success. We have had thousands and thousands of readers. It accumulates, people come to the new issue, and then they go and visit the old issues. So the circulation or the readership goes up and up exponentially. I think that's the word. And really, it's just to acknowledge, to say thank you to you all for enabling this to happen. It is taking, I think, the AA into a new area because it's quite commercially driven, but it's still early days. And the next issue will be, in a sense, a rebranding of Stella as we go forward shamelessly into what I would call populist astrology, which is fairly intelligent. But the whole idea of it is to engage with the online audience. And you can help, all of you, by, I'm always saying this, and the AA's just had about enough of me saying it, of posting the live link of Stella. It also helps in other ways. We've had so many new people signing up for In the Loop, for example. So once people come into the AA website, largely through Stella, which has sort of increased the visits to the web by more than 100%, maybe 200%. I can't remember the actual, I didn't actually prepare to talk today, actually. So I'm speaking off the top of my head. But just to say thank you very much. Please help promote Stella. And I think that we're on a good run here, as is supported by that chart, which is there. Thank you very much.
But just one detail, if you want to log on to the web, don't log on to Astrological Association, but log on to Eastwood. Okay? It won't work if you try to log on to Astrological Association. Close it.
I would imagine all right.
Yeah, just give me a second. I need to share the screen. I know, stop. You're causing a problem now when you click. Stop clicking. Stop clicking. Yeah, stop. Should be not good now, right? Stop clicking. No, stop clicking. This is not what happened earlier when we practiced. Yeah, we've already done that 100 times. It's good now, right? What do you not? What do you see? Use No, it's the same thing. No, that didn't fix it. It's the best. It's fine. It's all.
Thank you, everybody. One of those, how many astrologers does it take to sit up and do?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Now I have a great pleasure in introducing Deborah Holding, Nottinghamshire local resident and fabulous astrologer. And I'm sure you need no introduction, Deb, but for those of you that Deb set up and is director of the STA and has a new course starting in October as well. And she's also of course, the facilitator of SkyScript website, which is an incredible resource for astrologers, and is doing fundraising for SkyScript for the new launch of that too. So do go on and help her out. But it's really important. It's great to have Deb here. Great figure, great iconic figure in the astrological community here in Britain. So can we please give her a very big warm welcome? Deborah.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of a last minute technical. I don't know what happened. I can't get rid of this. Okay, there we go. We're good. We're good now.
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? At the back? No? I need to be louder? Okay. What about now?
Is it on?
No? Is it on?
Press the open
Technology.
I just pressed it once.
Can I just say that Roy elected the commencement chart, not me. How about now? Can you hear me okay now? Okay at the back? Okay, let's get started because I have a lot to cover. So thank you for having me, AA, and thank you for being here and letting me talk. So my theme tonight is focusing on how planetary returns and ongoing contacts reawaken the original themes of a chart. I'll be looking at how this plays out in solar returns, but I want to stress from the start that this principle runs through every branch of astrology. What we're exploring tonight is an essential consideration whenever we time events or track when natal patterns become most active. So at the heart of all this is the idea of radicality. That word has gathered some baggage in modern astrology because it gets attached to the notion of barriers, problems, or reasons why you might not get a reliable horary. So radicality is not one of the considerations before judgment. It is a principle that supersedes all of them. And tonight I'm going to be exploring what that way of thinking overlooks. So my talk title is simple, but it's very much to the point. Radicality is about returns. It's something recurring, something echoing, something coming back to life and empowering what was there in the beginning. That's a radical connection, a return to the root. And radical reconnections are the strongest, most powerfully meaningful, and most reliable of all astrological events. And this idea shows up everywhere, in horary, election astrology, any timing technique, and every kind of return, whether we're talking about a solar return, a lunar return, or any kind of planetary return. These were all traditionally described as revolutions. So what we refer to as a solar return chart today was historically a revolution, or yes, a revolution chart. Okay, so for anybody that's new to the idea, I'll cover this very briefly, but the solar return is cast annually for the moment the sun returns to its exact natal position. And this chart gives an overview of the year's themes. It's often viewed as a standalone chart, but the point I want to stress is that it should never be read in isolation. The real meaning comes when we see it as an overlay, something that brings focus to the underlying natal themes. And it's the same with any other kind of planetary return. Historical astrologers often considered lunar returns too, which is a monthly chart, I'll go back to that, monthly chart cast for each time the moon returns to its natal position. And these give a sense of what that month holds and identify periods when the solar return themes get most activated. And though we tend to talk mainly about solar returns or lunar returns, the return of any planet to its natal position is a very significant event. It's something much more than a conjunction by transit. It's a return, it's a catalyzing event that renews and reactivates the natal promise of that planet. So, backwards to go forwards. Right, so William Lilly discusses revolutions and planetary returns in volume 3 of Christian Astrology, but his treatment is really very brief. He also discusses transits and tells you what all the transits mean in about a page and a half. Now we get a much more passionate treatment from the 17th century mathematician astrologer Jean-Baptiste Morin. Morin really underlines the need to relate every revolution back to what is termed the radix. And the Latin term radix just means the root. So in any kind of natal chart or natal work, the radix is the birth horoscope. It's the foundation for anything that follows. So that's our starting point for all timing techniques, and every predictive method goes back to it. Hence, it is the root, it is the radix. Okay, so we'll just have a few little looks at what Morin had to say. I'll capture his most important points. Morin tells us predict nothing in the revolution, don't predict anything from the solar return chart, at least nothing of significance, unless it has been signified by the radix. Similarity of signification between a revolution and the radix manifests what is promised in the nativity. Absence of this similarity prevents the fulfillment of the nativity's significations and the power of its directions. So you're looking for repeated themes. I see this over and over as an astrologer, where maybe somebody's born with a very dramatic Saturn-Mars opposition, and some really significant life-changing event happens when Mars and Saturn is lined up in opposition, not even necessarily in contact with those original planets, but the repeat of the signature, the repeat of the theme. So there may well be years when you've got a solar return chart, it just doesn't do very much, just doesn't, because it's not hitting the theme. We're looking for the reconnections, and when we see those reconnections, that's your vibrant streak. So Morin tells us the more closely the revolution aligns with the radix in sign and planetary positions, the more effectively it brings about what is promised by the radix. He also gives special attention to years when the angles recur and line up. I've seen that so many times as an astrologer. When you get predictive techniques and the angles are repeated, that's when something really significant happens. And he also mentions the years when the angles reverse, they're significant years too, but they're usually crossed with contrary events, so they're more difficult. And one of the reasons why, when we get this repeat of the angles in the solar return, one of the reasons why everything is stronger and easier to read is it means that the house rulerships in the original radix chart are flowing through to the solar return. So you've got a planet that is signifying something. It's not signifying one theme in the solar return and another in the nativity. Everything is strengthened when you get this repeat. Right, so it's great to be able to quote Morin, because there's details in his charts that I'll be looking at later which clearly show these principles in practice. And one of the fascinating things about him is he predicted the time of his own death. And I've noticed some historians and some astrologers talk about this, you know, scoffingly, as if it didn't really happen. They do it with other astrologers that did the same thing. But I have no doubt that he did predict the time of his death, because his method was clear, it was systematic, and the astrology was very vivid. So we'll look at that situation shortly, but in the meantime, just a couple more points that I want to draw attention to from Morin's work. So he says, for any planet in the revolution, first consider its house in the radix, then consider its house in the revolution. For the radical figure supersedes the revolution in time, power, and generality. The latter is inferior, but more particular, but it's determined by it. Hence, first see how planets relate to the radix before considering the revolution. He also tells us a planet on the ascendant of the revolution affects the native signification in first house matters according to the nature, condition, and specification of that planet in the birth chart. And the same principle applies to a planet angular on the midheaven or the other cusps. If we see a planet angular, we can't just think, oh, it's Venus, that's going to be a great year. You've got to look at what Venus rules in the nativity. If it's ruling the 12th house or the 6th house, that might be showing it's a year when Venus-type illnesses are prevalent. And so he says, if the solar revolution's ascendant is the place of the radical Saturn, or Mars in the 8th, or the Lord of the 8th, you must guard against death in any month when the ascendant of the lunar revolution is the same or in the same quarter with other supporting testimonies. Okay, so let's have a look at what he's really saying and how it plays out. Here's the chart of Grace Kelly. It's an accurately timed nativity with an AA Rodin rating. And I'm sure she needs no introduction to most astrologers here, but for the benefit of any younger astrologers, she was an Oscar-winning actress, celebrated for her elegance, poise, and beauty. In Hollywood, she was labeled the Ice Queen because of her cool composure and her aloof, sophisticated characters which she played on screen. So in 1956, at the height of her fame, she left Hollywood to become a European princess when she married Prince Rainier of Monaco. You can see her signature traits straight away. She's got a Leo midheaven pointing to a regal public image. It's expressed through a Scorpio sun conjunct a dignified Mars in the first house, showing intensity, presence, and magnetism. The fifth house moon in Pisces fills out the description offered by her close friends. She was deeply private, committed, quietly strong, reserved by nature, but also sensitive and caring, and a devoted mother to the three royal children, Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie. In September 1982, Grace was driving with her 17-year-old daughter, Stephanie, when their car left a steep mountain road and plunged over a cliff. Grace died the next day from her injuries. Stephanie was badly hurt, but she survived. The two were rumoured to be arguing. Some, in fact, say that they were fighting at the time of the crash. So keep that in mind as you note that Jupiter, ruler of the fifth house of children, is placed in the eighth. This is the solar return chart for Grace at that year, age 52. Now, at first glance, as a standalone chart, it doesn't look too bad. Most of the emphasis is subdued beneath the earth, with the ascendant in Cancer and only the ascendant ruler moon above the horizon. The moon's placement in the 11th house might make us hope for happy themes, but its real relevance here is its translating opposition between the Sun and Uranus in the 5th house, showing a year where issues with children are highlighted with chaos, disruption, and stress. All biographers describe Stephanie as a willful, rebellious daughter, and just days earlier, Grace had remarked to a friend that Princess Stephanie would be the death of her. Although, I'm a mother. I've said that about every one of my children 3 times a day. So, but it was difficult because Grace had spent months arranging to get her unfocused daughter into a very prestigious fashion school in Paris, and she pulled lots of strings to make that happen. But now, on the very day they should be catching the train to Paris to enroll in the course, which started 2 days later, Stephanie was refusing to go because she'd recently started a relationship with a racing car driver who neither of her parents approved of. And she was saying that she now wasn't interested in fashion anymore. She wanted to stay in Monaco and train to become a racing driver herself instead. So this whole weekend leading up to the crash, the biographers and people that were there were saying that it was just a climax of tension erupted into heated arguments about this trip to Paris. And they were driving to the train station as the accident occurred. Even though Grace had a well-known dislike of driving, a well-known hatred and fear of a particular road that she crashed on, she told the chauffeur that she was going to drive Stephanie, which friends assumed was because they were still arguing about this awkward family issue, and she wanted to continue the conversation in private, not with a chauffeur with them, as they drove to the station. Okay, so we see the signature of quarrels with children dominating this year's solar return in Mercury's placement on the 5th house cusp. Mercury rules the loaded 4th house and the dark, afflictive 12th house, and it also disposes and applies towards Mars in the 3rd. So in hindsight, it's easy to see Mars in the 3rd as signalling a mix of travel, confrontation, and angry communication, a car accident, or even an argument about train travel. You know, this is something that you might think, oh, well, that all fits. But in the broader context of a solar return, we'd want to read that as part of a larger theme. So we would say this year marks a year where tensions with children or press reports about them would dominate her focus and cause sustained stress, which was happening at the time with both of her daughters. Okay, so the year looks annoying, but it doesn't look deadly until we relate the solar return back to the nativity to recall that Mercury at 4 degrees Scorpio sits on the radical ascendant and rules the radical 8th house. And this fills the solar return with critical themes. And consider the afflicted condition of this Mercury. The solar return Mercury is wholly disposed by Mars and applying to it by aspect with mutual reception by sign. The natal Mercury is peregrine, disposed by Mars, It's partile the malefic south node and conjunct the unlucky fixed star Zuben El Ganubi, which is the southern core of the Scorpion. It's a distinctly martial malefic star in traditional literature, said to bestow an immortal name, but usually through tragedy. The midheaven of the solar return chart aligns with that natal moon in the 5th house, highlighting its significance. And now we see that the solar return moon is not just translating between the opposition of the sun and Uranus in the solar return, but that all of this configuration is bringing focus to Grace's natal Sun-Mars conjunction as the solar return moon's opposition strikes between them. We should also note the alignment between the solar return Jupiter and Grace's 12th house Venus, with a recognition that this is not just a simple union of two natural benefics, because both are made malefic or accidentally malefic in Grace's nativity. Jupiter, as noted, it rules the 5th house, but it's placed in the 8th house. And Venus is strong in essential dignity, which testifies to her obvious grace and beauty, but it rules the 12th house and the 7th house, and it picks up symbolism of hidden sadness because of its placement in the 12th. And by all accounts, Grace's marriage to Rainier was not a happy one. It involved many sacrifices for her. She was very much like Princess Diana because she became aware of his affairs very soon after the wedding and felt unable to divorce him because of his royal status at that time. They shared no life interests other than their duties and their children. She felt confined and creatively stifled, and she was shocked after the marriage to realise she could no longer keep her own acting career or any of the celebrity status that related directly to that. Now, all of these points would be great to explore in further detail, but my time is short, so I'll just note that Venus for Grace was not a signature of relationship joy, but relationship problems and sadness. And its union with Jupiter here focuses that concern on children and daughters. Okay, so the solar return ascendant is conjunct the radical 8th ruler, marking a year that Morin describes as presenting a need to guard against death. To follow his technique, we now consider the monthly lunar returns to see when that theme gets accentuated. But let me explain that I'm not quoting Morin because I use his methods precisely. I'm quoting him because his text uses what I've always used myself before I even know he was using them. I don't tend to use lunar return charts myself very often. I may do in the future, but my technique would normally, with a solar return, I would eyeball it. I would look for a reconnection by transit of the main significators that appear in the chart, because we're always going to see that on a dramatic event. We're going to see some reconnection of the significators. But since I quoted Morin, let's continue with his approach. And this is the lunar return for the period of the crash. We're not searching for a date, but we're reviewing a known one. We should have, according to his rules, he says the ascendant should be in the same sign or the same quarter. But I would warn you against relying on that point. It's not relevant, because what he also says is with a reinforcement of theme. That's what you want to look for. You want to see the reinforcement of theme. The repeat of the ascendant, it comes up often and it's one to note, but it's not an absolute rule. And in this case, this solar return actually lines up much better if you bring in the chart of Stephanie, and there's a whole new storyline there, which, you know, we're not going to get into. But anyway, nonetheless, in this lunar return, we can clearly see a month of heightened data. So we've got the moon on the 8th house cusp. We've got Mars, which is the most potent planet, and the dispositor of Mars, Mars is the most potent planet. It's forceful angular, and it's at the root of the chart where its influence underpins everything. We've got Saturn on the cusp of that loaded 3rd house, and Saturn's dispositor is Venus, which is rising on the ascendant. So that's pointing to problems with transport and short journeys. And also note that the third ruler, which is Venus, is translating between Saturn and Pluto and between Mars and Uranus by square, as it also falls on the trine of Neptune. Okay, so the lunar return is set for the 4th of September, 1982. And the solar return that it's extending was actually 11 months earlier, or sorry, 10 months earlier. So the striking reconnections are not about these two charts being close together in time. It's about the signatures returning to it. Something more meaningful is at work. Now let's look at how that lunar return and solar return fit together. We can see that the lunar return Sun is less than 1 degree from the solar return Mars, and at the same time, the lunar return Mars is exact to the minute of arc on the solar, sorry, the lunar return Mars is on the solar return Sun. The lunar return Moon is less than 3 degrees from the solar return midheaven. The lunar return midheaven is only 25 minutes of arc from the solar return Moon, so you've got that double signature there. And also note how the nodes across the axis, which usually, heightens the drama in events. And again, the relevance of Venus and Jupiter are very evident in this chart. Venus is on the ascendant degree of the lunar return or upon the solar return, 3rd house cusp. And at the same time, the 5th house ruler, Jupiter, which is placed in the 8th house radically, is now on the 5th house cusp of the solar return. So it's bringing those notions of 8th house issues, or bringing it and reinforcing it at that time. So the lunar return shows the need to guard against death is now very heightened. It's very striking how these themes are lining up. We've got the radical 8th house ruler, Mercury, placed on the 12th house cusp, translating its light between the trine of the 8th cusp and the resident 8th house planet Jupiter, which here is angular. And at the same time, Mars is partile with the natal sun, closing in on its own degree. And note again how the midheaven of the lunar return echoes that moon placement in the solar return at 21 Taurus, directly opposing that perilous Sun-Mars conjunction in Grace's nativity. To time this, her greatest period of danger, if we were electing this, which sounds a bit macabre, but if I was going to do an electoral chart to elect and discover which is the time that you need to guard against the most, what would we look for? Because well, I think we're talking about Grace Kelly, who's very, very beautiful, and we've got Venus rising in opposition to Pluto, and we're going to talk about her death, which is very dramatic. And I'm just getting into the very moment of the crash. So I think that, you probably pick me a good moment. Thank you. For the benefit of people online, you don't know what that's about, don't worry about it. Okay, back to Grace. How would we elect? When should she be most concerned? We can see that Mars is by transit, because we looked at the lunar return. The lunar return started off showing what's going to play out that month. We can see Mars is on a natal sun and it's moving into a natal Mars. So you would think its period between those two planets up to when it meets its natal Mars is going to be the most critical period. And because the sun is also part of that Sun-Mars conjunction, we also expect that the sun would fold into it too. And the sun is, the significator of life. Now, the sun gets very hot when it reaches 2021 Virgo and opposes her natal moon. And at that point, it aspects the natal Sun-Mars while making a trine to that repeatedly emphasized opposing point in the solar and lunar return. And because we know the sun moves about 1 degree a day regularly, never much away from it, we can look at that and think, right, I would imagine when the sun gets to around 2019, 2021, she's got to be really, really careful. And we can finger count it. We can add on how many days from this, and we're probably saying 9, 10 days she's got to be careful. And we would also expect a reconnection of that moon as well. The moon is usually the final timing trigger. When everything else is in place, you know, the movement of the moon will show you the moment, or the day, or the moment, or the hour. So looking at this, we would anticipate either when it gets to that 20 Taurus, where it, you know, it's picked up on the returns, it's directly in opposition. That would make a lot of sense. That happens around the 8th of September. Or the other critical time is when it gets around the 13th of September, when it gets to 21 Cancer, because then it lights up everything. It's shining, you know, the sun, the moon. It also translates between Saturn and Pluto by square. It's like everything is lit up at that time. Now, Saturn is also a relevant significator of death, but when we're looking to time, we don't normally time from Saturn. We need something to come to Saturn. And so we'd be expecting something like the moon making contact by square or something of that nature. But we might think about the fact that, you know, when the event happens, we would expect a malefic or a difficult planet such as Saturn, Mars, or one of the outers angular on the midheaven or rising on the ascendant at that time. And we might expect, or we might consider, when Mercury, which is the 8th ruler, moves forward a few more degrees to make an aspect with Jupiter, which is natally in the 8th house. And that, you know, brings those significators of death together. So all things considered, we would look at this and think, you know, the period around 13th of September is when everything comes together. Would you not agree? Like all the connections are there. Okay, so the crash happened at 9:55 a.m. on the 13th of September when Grace lost control on a hairpin bend at a high enough speed to crash through the retaining wall and several trees. At this time, Mars was only 10 minutes of arc from its natal position, and the exact return moment was within hours of that day. The Sun at 20 degrees Virgo aspected the natal Sun-Mars conjunction while opposing the natal Moon. The Moon at 24 Cancer completed the grand trine with the natal luminaries while applying to Mars and translating between the square of Saturn and Pluto. The South Node fell on the 3rd house cusp, ruled by that Saturn, showing loss in themes of travel, communications, and short journeys. And the radical 8th ruler, Mercury, cast a trine to the 5th ruler, Jupiter, in the 8th house, again uniting themes of death and children. So wherever we look at this biwheel, the testimonies converge on the fatal event. I've only focused on a few key points here and moved through it very quickly. I'm sorry if I had to pace so quickly through this. If we had more time, a fuller examination would uncover a lot more interesting themes in this. Okay, so remember that in the natal chart, Saturn rules the 3rd house, Jupiter rules the 5th, but in the standalone chart for the crash, those roles are reversed. And also note that the moon is exactly angular as it squares that Saturn-Pluto conjunction rising on the ascendant at the moment of impact. Neptune on the 3rd house cusp relates to the situation in many ways, including false and confusing press releases issued by the palace, which fueled lingering mysteries that continue to feed conspiracy theories. Because the palace very quickly and very immediately blamed the accident on mechanical brake failure, which was, you know, very clearly proven not to be the case. They also sent press releases saying, yes, it's been an accident, but both are expected, to fully recover. But Grace actually never recovered. She was sedated by the ambulance team, and when she didn't recover consciousness, she was given an MRI scan and she was declared clinically dead at 6 p.m. the following evening, just at the moment that that Mars return perfected to the minute. And her life support was withdrawn at 10 p.m. that night, exactly as that solar return moon degree, 21 degrees Taurus, rose on the ascendant, and Mars, natal Mars, set on the descendant. Okay, so just to wrap this up very quickly, that afflicted Venus-Jupiter thread that runs through all these charts, it really draws out a tragic theme of mothers and daughters. And how this played out for Stephanie deserves a whole narrative of its own. But such a traumatic event would obviously shadow her for the rest of her life. And we would expect to see a very strong, immediate signature of that straight away. So I'll look at it very briefly. Like Grace, Stephanie has a Rodden AA rated very precise birth time. And whilst the event manifested as a Mars return for Grace, it's interesting that for Stephanie, the solar return that year was a Venus return. And in her natal chart, Venus rules both the 3rd house of short journeys and the 10th house, which is the house of the mother. In the solar return, the moon falls exactly on her natal Jupiter at the midheaven. Look how Jupiter rules her natal 8th house, and in the solar return, it is on the natal IC in opposition. Okay, so the theme of the crash and the need to guard against accident this year is even more emphatic as the solar return ascendant falls on the natal Mars, and its Mars-Saturn-Pluto conjunction lands in her 3rd house, squared by that dispositor Venus. So there's a very vivid storyline to explore here, but I'll just leave Caroline's Stephanie's story at that. What I wanted to just show from these charts is how strongly these significators reconnect, and that when we put charts into the proper flow of radicality, we simplify our work. We don't make it more complicated because the reconnections are striking. They are in your face. We're not hunting down minor connections or getting lost in an overflow of details. We see at a glance powerful re-engagement of key significators from the root nativity. And I've often expressed my view that transits are the simplest, most astrology. The challenge is knowing when a transit will spark a truly pivotal event and when it might pass as a diffused or emotive experience. And the value of the technique is lost if we don't spend a little bit of time putting the whole symbolic picture together, using the principle of radicality as the organizing principle at the heart of everything. How am I doing for time? What? Okay. Okay, so no, hang on. Did you have my extra?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I got it. Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Okay, so I have another example. Let's return to Morin. We don't get very far in the study of Morin or solar returns without coming to the controversy of solar returns, which is, do we cast that solar return chart for the natal locality, or do we relocate it if the person has moved? And I generally don't relocate solar chart return charts. I'm of the opinion that there's something uniquely special and resonant about the combined time and place of the nativity. Now, Morin was the astrologer who introduced the argument that we ought to think otherwise. And he explains that although the standard practice in his day and historically was to use the natal chart, everybody else was wrong. And that we should be casting the solar return chart for the location of the native, wherever they are at the moment of the solar return. It builds up a very elegant argument. It's very persuasive. But he suggests that by moving away from the natal place, one may avoid or mitigate the revolution's influence because you're getting a different chart. Now, this has led to some interesting journeys by astrologers that make me think of dodging death in Baghdad by fleeing to Samarra. Because even though his argument is very persuasive, and I'm not really, I'm actually sympathetic to a lot of things he said. I'm not strongly issuing a point on this. I'm explaining my point is that I tend to use the natal chart. I'm a little bit, it's easy, it works. But the other thing about Morin's argument is because he says, like, it's not the place that matters, it's where the person is. So if the person is in a different place, that's where you've got to set it, and that the place has no significance by itself. But the thing about Morin is that in his technique, before you look at a birth chart, you have to look at the prenatal lunation chart, and that sets an underlying theme. And where does he set that prenatal lunation chart for? The birth location. He doesn't tell us to start going around different places at full moons and new moons when we're pregnant to get a better prenatal lunation. So, you know, even on a theoretical point, I got lots of reasons where I think I like the natal nativity. However, we're with Morin, and I'm going to talk about, it doesn't make a big difference. Morin moved from Vilchance to Paris, and it probably makes, you know, a few minutes difference to the angles of his chart, and it flips them to the other side. So we're still within two, you know, couple of degrees of relevancy. So it doesn't really make any difference. But I'm going to use his chart and show why he would have seen his death using his technique. So this is Morin's nativity. It's a very well-timed chart. He explains that he rectified it very carefully and he proved its accuracy in many life events. This reported time has caused confusion for modern astrologers because they don't understand that we have to add the 8:48 AM to true midnight, which was the moment that the body of the sun aligned with the IC. That's what Morin was doing. And so anyway, if you've got concerns about the timing of the chart, check the panel there and you will see that the time reported in his work is very accurate to the charts that he shows several times in his work. So the two historical charts on the right are used by Morin to explore technique and to give an account of his own life. And at the bottom is the nativity and at the top is the prenatal lunation. Okay, so that prenatal lunation was a new moon the day before he was born. And in his technique, this means a lot because anything comes out of the cycle before. So if somebody is born and they make significant contact to that prenatal lunation, they will be the people that activate the themes of it. And he describes this as a spectacular lunation. It's got Alcyone rising, but particularly interesting is it's got Aldebaran and Antares in the first house and the 7th houses, but all the planets except Mars are in the fortunate 11th house. And he makes a lot of this because this is, to him, you know, I'm pretty bumming special. And look at all that 11th house with my 10th house ruler in the 11th house. But then he says, but it's a good job I had this because the circumstances of my birth gave me very difficult circumstances because his actual birth chart, that stellium of planet has mostly dropped to the 12th house. And you can see here that that alignment, I'll just flick back to the alignment of Aldebaran and Antares was very significant for him. And also because it's an exact square to that prenatal lunation at 3 degrees Pisces. And then in his birth chart, he sees that on the 8th house cusp. And here it's exactly in a line by square to his 12th house cusp with the sun upon it. And he is proudly 12th house, you know, it's like he wants everything but Mars is in his 12th house for him. He doesn't use the 5-degree rule like Lily does, but for him, if a planet's moiety or half of its orb covers a house cusp, then its point of relevance is the house whose cusp it is folding into as it moves towards it. So he even considers Mercury and Venus as 12th house planets here. And he uses his chart to explain, you know, the difficulties and circumstances, the controversies, the theoretical. He was a very intelligent man. He had lots of people that, you know, prevented him from succeeding. And he talks about this. His life story is very dramatic. I haven't got time to go into it. I wish I could just talk about Morin and explain his biography as he does against his chart, because it's quite, you know, emotive. But anyway, what we need to look at is this. I'm just going to go back a minute. This prenatal lunation, this Aldebaran Antares axis. Yeah, he talks about his 12th house being a veil of misery. So, yes, this, there we are. The alignment of Aldebaran and Antares. This was the solar return chart on the year that he died. And you will see how that has moved up to the ascendant And why Morin would be very concerned about that was because he had talked about these planets, because they're always obviously in an opposition axis with each other. And he was a medical doctor, and within his work, he includes passages about how many times he has seen the alignment or some configuration of Jupiter with this star as being critical. So if we look at just a few quotes here where he's talking about, in his work, he writes about Cardinal Richelieu, who had Jupiter in the 8th house in Gemini with Aldebaran, who perished of a terrible disease. Aldebaran and Antares were both martial stars. They were both connected with high fevers. And as somebody who was a medical doctor, he had seen this, that people, had perished or had terrible high fevers with an alignment of this axis. And Lord de Hayes, who had Jupiter in Gemini in the 8th with Aldebaran, and he was beheaded by command of the king. But he also had, he talks about, he had Moon conjunct Algol as well. And he says, I have Jupiter, Lord of the 8th, and Saturn in the 12th, and I have suffered malicious and arduous illnesses. Yet I recovered because disease may admit of remedy, though death may not. Still, I have faced many dangers of violent death and was even gravely wounded. So he was very aware of that. The report that we have of his death is that about 2 weeks before he dies, when he was in good health, he had gone to visit with some friends a palmist, and he'd gone more out of intellectual curiosity than anything else, along with his friends. They wanted to test her. She had a fantastic reputation. And when he offered her his hand, the palmist said to him that the vital line is already cut. Look to your affairs. There's nothing else I can tell you. You are pressed for time. And the biographer, who was his very close friend, who was the one that actually published his work, Astrological, he was the one that Morin left all his papers to, and he put it into print, and he was there at the time. And he reports how Morin turned to all the friends and said, remember what I've long been repeating to you. This year, as it flows on, is very troublesome to me. And at the end of this month, I am greatly terrified by the stars. I scarcely dare promise myself safety from this danger. Okay, so we have, let's have a look what we've got here. We've got the solar return ascendant falling on the 8th house cusp as the natal 8th ruler by solar return joins the ascendant. And that double strike clearly marks this year as one that would concern him. Another detail worth noting is the lineup between the solar return Mercury and the natal Jupiter. While it is also partile trine to the ascendant ruler Mars. And in the nativity, Mercury at 27 Aquarius makes an exact sextile to the ascendant at 27 Aries. So Mercury is a planet that contributes most to Morin's character and temperament. It defines him very strongly. He's a writer, he's an intellectual, who's famed for his skill in mathematics, logic, disputation, and astrology, of course. And Mercury is also the 6th house ruler. So the union of Mercury with Jupiter brings the themes of illness and death together. And note that Mercury disposes transiting Saturn, which is retrograding in Virgo through the 6th house, moving back to oppose solar return Mercury as that heads straight to its conjunction with radical Saturn. So all over, there's strong warnings in this solar return. And we would need to then think this year's difficult. Why has he identified the end of October as the period that he's most concerned with? Now, if we went with a Lily approach, we would look at the significators and we would look in an ephemeris for a time that the significators reconnect as they did with Grace. These astrologers were not glued to a computer, but they were glued to their ephemeris and they knew the planets' patterns that were coming up. And Jupiter is obviously a planet to watch. It's moving direct, but it only gets as far that year as 6 degrees Gemini before it stations on that degree at the end of September in direct alignment with the 8th house cusp. So it's the very end of September, which that detail alone is going to mark October as the perilous month when the Aldebaran Antares Jupiter 8th house theme activates. This is the lunar return for the end of October, and this is the danger period he had seen. The nodal axis cuts across the ascendant descendant, with the moon, the ruler of the ascendant, angular on the midheaven. And the moon's angularity here speaks to the state of the body in the month. And on the midheaven, it makes its theme obvious and ominous. That midheaven being the degree of Saturn in Morin's nativity. Here we see the natal 8th ruler Jupiter in Gemini, pressed against Aldebaran, the virulent fever star in the destructive alignment Morin had described. It rules the 6th house and sits hard on the 12th house cusp. Within days, Mercury, ruler of the 12th and the natal 6th ruler, will close into opposition, completing the deadly picture. And the biography records the shock of his friends because only 9 days after his visit to the palmist, which was 3 days after this solar return, Morin was seized by a sudden violent fever. So great was its force that on the 6th day he was carried to the grave.
Deborah, sorry, 2 minutes.
Okay, I don't even need 2 minutes. Okay, so Morin passed away in the 2nd hour after midnight on the 6th of November, 1656. I cast the chart for the middle of that hour because he didn't die at 2 a.m. He died within that 2nd hour, because I wanted to anchor the theme loosely around the reported time. And at that time, the Jupiter-Mercury opposition, which struck the Aldebaran Antares axis, was angular as Morin's natal Saturn and stellium of personal planets sat in the west. Both malefics, Saturn and Mars, were transiting his 6th house, just as that critical Jupiter-Mercury alignment, which joined the significators of illness and death, struck the 8th house cusp. But remember, what really personalizes this detail for Morin is that the opposition of Aldebaran Antares at 3 degrees Gemini Sagittarius squared his Sun-Jupiter conjunction in the 12th and the degree of his natal 6th house cusp at 3 degrees Pisces and Virgo. So knowing this alignment was looming, Morin must have reasoned that any illness around that time would likely prove fatal. The moon ruling the 4th house of endings, marked by the nodes, was crossing into Cancer. It was translating between the key significators from natal Mercury, which it met at the nodes, to Morin's Sun-Jupiter in the 12th, really sharpening the focus on that fatal configuration. Now, it's said that Morin passed, well, it's reported that he passed away with great serenity, great composure. When he left the palmist, he had told his friends that he knew that he wasn't going to make another month because he'd seen his stars. And from that moment on, he started to put his affairs in order. He started disposing of his funds, making sure that his servants were well paid for. He did everything to prepare for his passing. And we're told that, the way that the serenity of his death was really incredible. But he'd spent his life watching the celestial cycles reflect the cycles of nature. He knew what was happening. He was prepared for it. He recognized and accepted it. He understood there was a time for everything and that his time was now. And that is radicality. What emerges from the root returns to the root, as it continually reappears through all the major cycles of life. Each revolution brings a shift, not a complete beginning or an end ever, but always a reactivation of what was there from the beginning, and it's all part of a greater unfolding that continues to move and unfold in cyclic natures. So, I apologize that there's a bit of morbidity, and I did use the word malefic, which might be offensive to some of you. Excuse my terminology. I use it descriptively. Every planet brings a blessing. Every event is an opportunity. But these are hard issues and we should be recognising them, and we can recognise them. I want the word radicality on every astrologer's lips, and not just, you know, astrologers talking about considerations before judgment in a hurry. Because this brings me back to the root of the issue I opened with tonight. So let's be taken. When we speak of returns and radicality, we're considering astrology at its most essential. It's the root reconnecting, it's the cycles renewing. And every method we work with, whether it's natal, horary, electional or mundane, holds this principle to heart. Its radicality is not just a rule for horary, it's the thread that binds all branches together. It gives continuity to our techniques, coherence to our predictions, and depth to the meaning to the cycles of life. So, no chart by itself. Every chart by itself is meaningful, but no chart means anything unless we're seeing the bigger picture and the thread that binds us together. That's my time is up, so I'm just going to push that up there. It's online.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone online and everyone watching on YouTube as well. It is now dinner time. We have an hour and a quarter before the Carter Memorial is back in here. So dinner is in the Lawrence room, which is just behind the bookshelves, bookstools in the corridor. So and the bar, please grab any wine you want on your way in. And we'll see you back here at 8:30. Thank you.
Are you threatening me in restaurant?
We get started when you're ready.
What do you see?
Did you want to take off the background? You can take off the background.
No, this is great.
You sure?
No, because it doesn't, no, it's fine.
Oh, yeah, that's please.
Good.
Yeah. Have you got that ultra light to here? Do it now.
You can always say. Yeah, we can see you, yeah.
Yeah. See me okay? You can hear me? Testing, testing.
These are the things, I think we'll be okay, but I just need to double check.
I had it when I tried to put it, it's weird.
Let me see what's going on. I need something heavy. I need something heavy.
Oh, to,
Yeah, because the.
so, oh, oh, really?
Maybe not.
Uh,
Yeah, no, your thing is a little.
Okay, what about,
Your phone. Got your phone?
Are you?
no, no, got left it in the room. You can, oh, no, that's not heavy.
What happened to the USB
That's another option.
Is it long? Is
Hey,
it long?
do you have an HDMI to USB-C?
Oh, but what about if you tucked it underneath? What if I run it under? Is it long enough? Or something, yeah. Or maybe.
No stress, everybody. No stress.
Let's see if.
No stress.
That looks better. Oh, no, it isn't.
No, it's all good here. It's. No, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
I'm thinking about like HDMI USB-C.
Okay,
Okay, or what if,
no, just leave it, because the problem is we need to get it exactly right.
yeah, I'm just trying to see that, yeah, like maybe like try to hang it, or, yes, yeah.
Perfect, okay,
Right.
let me just make sure we're,
Does it go?
yeah, we're good.
Okay.
But I bet it's a backup that's going wrong.
I'll take it right.
Are you ready? Are you ready to start? Is that ready?
Yeah.
Can I start?
Yes.
Oh, hold on, there's one thing that must do.
Excuse me.
What's that?
One more thing we need to do.
Record?
No.
I'm gonna put you on now.
Oh,
Oh, I thought I was already online.
hey, if you're in the audience, just make sure, can you hear the audio? Can someone just in the chat box say yes? Thank you very much, West. All right, you're good to go, Israel?
Okay.
Yeah, testing. Can you all hear me?
You're good to go.
Do I have to bend down?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go then. So, some of you have heard this before, a lot of you people haven't heard it before, but the development of astrology in the modern world emanated round about the turn of the previous century, in the 19th century to 20th century, end of the 19th, with the development of theosophy and other magical interests following on from the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the latter part of the 19th century. And Alan Leo worked ethereal, the work of the Theosophical Society developed an interest in astrology that was taken up by people like Charles Carter, Barbara Hone, and Addie. And when Addie died, sorry, start again. When Charles Carter died in 1969, it was decided to have a conference to memorize all the work he had done in establishing astrology in the middle part of the 20th century. And then also to have a lecture at that conference that would be the keynote lecturer of the year. The speaker will be chosen either by the Astrological Association or by the Lodge of London. This year, the speaker is chosen by the Lodge of London. It's Eloise, who's been a close supporter of the Lodge for many years, is a very knowledgeable astrologer in a whole range of knowledge. And it's a great honour to have him here to speak to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the AA. As I was saying, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the AA, Wendy and Roy, and for you guys being here also as well. I'd like to dedicate this talk, however, to Janet Augustine and also Liz Green, who played a very important role in me going into this particular topic. What I'm about to share with you guys today, it's nothing new. You already know it. But it's just perhaps maybe just giving you another or maybe a fresh perspective of how to look at things, especially in terms of symbolism. Today, when we, for most of us, maybe not all, but for many of us, if not most, we put datas now we've all got the softwares, we're all clients and customers of Roy, aren't we? We've all got SolarFire, and we just put it in and up pops the chart. I came into astrology. When I came into astrology, computers were just, I remember my friend bought me, sold me this computer, and that was sort of like my first introduction. I wasn't really drawing charts by hand was just kind of phasing out kind of thing. And I remember when I was at the CPA, I attended a lecture with Claire Martin, and she says, today we're going to draw the chart by hand. And I was like, what? Why? Just put the details in the chart and it comes up. Are you going to bother with that? Who draws charts by hand anymore? And this workshop literally blew me away. It's there. I started, and I never looked back since. And still to this day, even though I predominantly use my computer to generate charts, I always, at least within a year, try and hand draw at least 6 to 10 charts by hand, because it just and things pop out. So is it going to the next one? Oh, maybe I've got to, will that be it? There we go. So the content for this evening, what I want to look at, just an overview of historical evolution of the symbols that we perhaps use in astrology, how the glyphs shape interpretation, to have a look at that also as well. It's quite interesting how the symbols have evolved from the beginning of times up until present. And things are always going to change. Who knows what symbols they're going to be using in astrology 200, 500 years from now. None of us physically are going to be here, maybe in other forms. I subscribe to the idea and philosophy of reincarnation, yes, but maybe we may be coming back, but who knows? So things always improve, things always are standardized and updated. And looking at the importance of planetary symbols in astrology also as well. So our 7 classical planets, traditional planets. I know, hold on a moment, some of you are saying, where's Uranus and Neptune and Pluto? They're coming. But these are the ones that we can see with the naked eye. And this is what our ancestors and early astrologers were essentially working with. And when we do astrology today, this is what we use. This is what's in the charts, isn't it? We all can identify every single symbol. But what is a symbol? Why does it work? Well, as it says, at its root, symbol comes from the Greek word to throw together or to put together. So it acts as a bridge, yeah? It unites the visible form with an invisible meaning. unlike a label or a sign that points to a single sign, to a single fixed thing like that. Right? We all know what that is. It's an exit, it's a fire exit. A symbol condenses many meanings at once, personal, cultural, archetypal, and invites participation. You don't simply read a symbol, you enter it. That's very, very key. When you're drawing a chart by hand, what happens? Something happens, something magical happens. And many of you can actually testify to that. So, I won't bore you too much. It's just going through the sign, image, and a symbol. It's a quick map. The icon resembles what it denotes, a portrait, a map perhaps, index. So it's just kind of taking you through. I just put it up there to just actually for my own use, to be quite to be quite honest. But it's there to kind of give you an understanding in terms of how symbols work in a chart, what it is that they do, each level in terms of how it's hitting us and resonating us and what it's opening for us. We'll be coming to that in a moment. Metaphor versus symbol. A metaphor is a statement. Time is a river, a precise bridge between two domains of meaning. A symbol is an image or form that hosts a field of meaning and can work on you below the threshold of the conscious language. As Carl Jung rightly says, as he put it neatly, a symbol, the best possible expression for something as yet unknown. It lets the psyche grasp what cannot yet be defined. So it's something, these symbols are not arbitrary. Don't just think somebody just woke up this morning and just thought, I think I'm just going to use that as the moon. No, it has a lot of deep meaning inside of it. And how symbols work. They're transformers. They bridge opposites, spirit and matter, conscious and unconscious. This is what it's about. This is what we're doing when we're interpreting a chart. We all know what the key meanings of the planets are. Mercury is communication and Venus is love, yes. But there's something deeper. They open up a door. I'll continue because I've got so much. On a note of death and renewal of symbols, a symbol dies when it is flattened to a single meaning or used cynically. It renews when it meets a fresh sincerity placed back into living relationship with practice, story, and community. And this is, again, what we are doing once we enter a chart, once we've got a client for us who have chart. And even if you don't have a client in front, when you're looking at your own chart, what are you doing? You're bringing something to life. You're participating with this symbol. What does it mean? And it's opening up doors, meanings of different levels. In essence, a symbol is a living interface between worlds, mind, matter, personal and collective, time and timeless. It encapsulates more than it can ever say outright. And its power lies not only in what it means, but what it does to the soul that engages it. Quite profound. The 7 traditional planets, the ones we can see with the naked eye, and the outers. Were you updated? A lot of the traditional astrologers are going to kill me tonight for some reason. What? Uranus? I'm a heathen. What is it with you guys? Outer planets are like kryptonite to a traditional astrologer, as kryptonite is to Superman. Uranus. Ooh. Next. You ever want to know what Chiron means? Mention it to a traditional astrologer. You'll see a wounded healer. You might be the one that ended up being wounded. Yeah. Many of you will recognize a chart like this. But some of you might think, oh, there's some funny symbols there. What is that all about? Well, this is a medieval chart. This is the chart for this evening. Make it a bit more simpler. 2,000 years ago, this is the kind of symbols that we would have been using. Anybody care to interpret it? Never been a difficulty. Some of you are familiar with it, of course. But this is what we are familiar with, isn't it? Right? This is the era that we was born in. So, this is a 3rd century symbol. 8th century, I believe. 11th century. Many of you will recognize this symbol, what it means. I didn't when I first saw it, but what the hell was that? But it's the symbol for the sun. Quite interesting. I mean, look at that first one. I mean, what would we say it looks like? A hat? A bit like a Father Christmas. I don't know. A light? Candlelight? What's here?
Comment.
Looks like a comet to me. Interesting. We can see the development of how things have moved on. Let's have a look at another one. Look at that one. Looks a bit like Capricorn, doesn't it? The symbol of Capricorn. Interesting. Interesting. 3rd century, 8th, 11th. Look at that. Very different. And that's the symbol. That. So what has happened? You know, things have changed, things have morphed, right? Well, we'll have a look at that. These are the symbols that were being used in 376 CE, 500, just after 500, 11th century. And this is what we know today. Look at how things have moved on. Incredible. Remarkable. So, just skipping through, don't mind me. Ancient beginnings. Planetary iconography originates from Babylonian and Egyptian cosmology. Well, the oldest written records. I'm under no doubt that astrology was being practiced maybe by earlier civilizations as more and more information is coming to us. But I believe that the oldest written documents, astrological, we know are Babylonian. Cuneiform. Egypt also had, because they were using pictorial language, wasn't they? So it's understandable. Celestial bodies were linked with deities like Ishtar being Venus, Marduk being Jupiter. Early symbols were derived from mythological attributes and sacred imagery. These are the things which give us our foundation in which astrology stands on still today. The planetary symbols we use today emerge through a fusion of astronomy, mythology, religion, and alchemy. Their origins date back thousands of years to Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Hellenistic worlds. It's like one culture would come and then another culture will build on that. The Hellenistics did tremendous. They were really able to amalgamate the earlier stuff and build a great system on it. Let's keep it moving. There's so much. Ancient astronomical observation, Babylonian and Mesopotamian roots, early symbolic language of the heavens. These are the origins of how planetary symbols came about. So the Egyptian hieroglyphs and sacred symbolism, Chaldean astrology using celestial deities, integration into early astrological systems. These are the beginnings. The Greek contributions, Hellenistic astrology and philosophical symbolism, much of which we practice today rests on Hellenistic. The role of Hermes, Thoth, in symbolic language. First systematic planetary associations. This is where it comes from. Then the Romans. The words we use today are Roman, are they not? Venus, Jupiter. 2,000 years, we would have been saying Selene and Chronos. And these are the words that we would have been using. They adopted. We know the Roman culture was the next one after the Greeks, and they merely adopted, they took on. But they did a good job. Had an influence in early medieval European astrology also as well. And then we have the medieval periods, preservation through Arabic translations, alchemical integrations of symbols, expansions of planetary glyphs and manuscripts, but a lot of that. And then bringing us up to the Renaissance, discovery of classical knowledge, printing press, standardized glyphs, occult philosophers and symbolism refinement started to come into the picture. So the Renaissance was the period where things started to become updated. And then we start getting emergence of astrology, alchemy, starting now to come in, magic, starting to fuse. This is where many of our symbols which we use today essentially starts to come. And then we get these planets. I think it's quite interesting how the ancients were using a waning moon and we use a waxing. I wonder what that's saying about what's happening here. Because I feel that's a lot to do with how we maybe see things and approach things. It's interesting. A view of the moon. Classical planets, sun and moon. The sun, circle with a dot, often associated, linked with deities like Apollo, Egyptian solar disk, sun gods, Ra, symbol of consciousness, vitality. Yeah, you may not necessarily use those words in a chart reading, but we have an understanding in terms of what the sun represents. The moon, the crescent moon, lunar goddess, since used antiquity, present as receptive in change, ancient lunar worship and fertility rites, alchemical lunar silver and emotional cycles, all connected, each particular planet. Mercury is often being associated with the caduceus, and there are many levels and meanings to this. Again, symbol can hold quite a lot. The caduceus, the winged messenger, hermeticism and mental agility, alchemical quicksilver and adaptability, always things associated with Mercury. Venus, symbol of Aphrodite, the mirror. The cross was added in the Renaissance era. Interesting. I think they wanted to get pally with the Pope. Well, that was. Don't burn us at the stake. There's a cross on there. We love you. But was associated with Ishtar, Aphrodite, symbol of love, attraction, and harmony. We know what Venus is all about. Mars is a very interesting one. The symbol of Venus, actually, the symbol of Mars is that upside down. That was the original symbol of state. So how did this one come about? Well, supposedly, it's the spear and the shield. You ever see a Roman or Greek soldier going at war? Have the shield there and the spears. That's what it is. So again, it's taking on additional meaning. Connected with martial energy, connection, god of iron, assertive force. Jupiter, derived from the Greek zeta, Z. And then it's got a bolt going through it. Hieroglyph of the eagle and the scepter. Quite interesting. And Saturn, of course. Chronos himself, representation of limitation, discipline, material boundaries. The sickle. But it's also moon, isn't it? Symbol of time and limitation, associated with lead and discipline. And for you, modern. Mr. Uranus. I mean, his symbol has changed, but originally, again, wanted to be named after Herschel, wasn't it? Who discovered him. So the symbol was somewhat morphed out of his initial, and then later they started to put these two lunar symbols, but it's interesting how things have moved on. Neptune's a bit more straightforward. It's the trident, something, associated with fishermen and people of the ocean. Mr. Pluto. That was the original one, wasn't it? Then later we got this one. Things have, again, adapted and they've grown over time. And we've got minor bodies. For those of you who use asteroids, Sirius, Pallas, Juno, Vesta. Yes, they've all got their symbols as well. We shall not forget them. But then the esoteric world started to come alive. All of these planets are a combination of sun, spirit, soul, moon, and matter combined. They're a combination of all of them. So this may be telling us a little bit more about what these planets perhaps also represent. Mercury's glyph, for example, shows us here both spirit and soul and matter at the bottom. So Mercury becomes the bridge between both spirit and soul and matter coming into three. Spirit coming into the body, soul into the body, call it as you wish. But Mercury is that planet which binds them, which brings them together. Hence why he's the communicator. He bridges the unconscious and the conscious. He's bringing something up for us. Many years ago, John Green used to say, I think Mercury is the most important planet. I disagree with him, but I agree with him. It's mercurial, right? Gotta go both ways. Yes and no. My father always said, you make a good lawyer. Should have listened. What am I doing here? But Mercury, integration of the higher and lower realms. Hidden symbolic layers, Venus and Mercury both combine spirit and matter differently. Quite interesting, they're the closest planets to the sun. So perhaps they're telling us something about how we integrate spirit into matter, or spirit and matter. Jupiter's glyph implies expansion, spirit over matter. So we got spirit over matter. So no wonder when you're having a Jupiter transit, you don't give a damn, right? Because soul, spirit is actually on matter. As opposed to the other way, with Saturn, matter on the spirit. It's a bit like a client of mine I had a few months ago. And I was talking about this Saturn transit on her moon in Pisces. She said, I just feel way down. What is happening? I thought, yeah, Saturn. It's a great analogy of Saturn, the way she described it, her face, everything just dropped. And I thought, yeah, that's matter acting upon spirit, forcing us to do something. I won't bother with that. Greek contributions, Hellenistic astrology, standardized planetary names, associations, philosophical schools. I think some of this stuff we already know, a bit familiar with. The symbols we recognize today took shape between the 4th and 9th century CE, crystallizing during the medieval and Renaissance periods through alchemy and hermetic philosophy, alchemical roots. Each planetary symbol derived from sacred geometry. This is also another input into how we see the planets today. Circle, crescent, matter. Later medieval scholars encoded these shapes into the glyphs to express the interplay of spirit, soul, and matter. For example, the sun, a circle, spirit with a dot, divine spark in the center. The moon, crescent, symbolizing the soul's reflective nature. Of course, we all know this. Trying to see here. The medieval Arabic influence. Arabic scholars preserved Greek symbols. Translations brought planetary glyphs into medieval Europe. We know a lot of information was going back and forth. Hence why when the Arabic, the lots, I should say, which kind of first became known as the Arabic parts, as many as you know. People thought they were Arab, right? So when they started doing something, and actually, no, these are actually Hellenistic, you know. But maybe through wars and preservation, you know, it's like it got translated into Arabic and then later came, you know, translated into other languages, European languages also as well. The Byzantine texts, 10th and 11th centuries, introduced protoglyphs. Alchemical influence connected symbols to spirit, soul, and matter, just like I said, Mercury merging spirit, matter. I think this is one of the reasons why Mercury is exalted in the only sign that he rules, also in the sign that he rules. We don't get no other planet that does that. I think there's something quite unique about Mercury in Virgo. He does something. It's the place where he's able to bridge both mind, spirit, and body. Call it as you wish. There's an integration there. Something about Mercury and Virgo. There's something about Virgo that has that spirit. During the 15th, 17th centuries, glyphs became standardized through people like Johannes Kepler, early astronomers who sought consistent astronomical notation. Ficino, Florentine Platonist, who linked planetary symbols to philosophical correspondences. So this is all part of the layer in terms of where we get our meaning. The printing press, which spread standardized astrological and alchemical texts. By this time, planetary symbols became a part of esoteric magic, talismans, grimoires. The Hermetic tradition ensured that the glyphs carried spiritual significance beyond their astronomical use. Of course, this is what symbols do. Symbols take us into that particular world. Cultists like Agrippa merged astrology with Hermetic Kabbalah. Planetary glyphs became magical seals used in talismans. Many of you may not work with magic, but again, like I said, once you're doing a chart, when you do a chart by hand, I kid you not, try it. I always try and take the date of birth of my clients way before I do a consultation for them. So I want to spend at least 45 minutes, an hour just looking, even though I may have put it in the computer and it generates it, because it comes so quick. You don't have time to, you know, I advise just take a moment, just look, and you find things jumping out at you. The amount of times I've done consultation and I thought, why the heck did I say that? But then the client says, you are bang on the money. And it's not there. See, it's not the kind of thing that you would associate perhaps with that planet that I'm interpreting. But it's you kind of go into this meditative state. I think Mercury does something. but by focusing on other planets also as well. Astronomers adapted as astrological glyphs, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, as we've seen, bridged esoteric traditions with modern science. Yeah, same thing, modern era. The traditionalists are going to come for me later on. Esoteric and psychological interpretation. I think this, especially for modern psychological astrology, plays a very, very big role. We know what the meanings of these planets essentially are. Sun meaning pure consciousness. It represents that divine center. It's the center of our own world, right? The moon, receptivity, cycles, emotional flux. Mercury, it's got the circle spirits over the cross of matter, crowned with a crescent soul, integration of mind, body, and spirit. Mercury is the one that does that. I can see why the likes of John Green feel like he is the most important planet. They're all important, of course. Venus, circle of spirit, above the cross of matter, love, uniting the material and the divine. Hence why the love. We sometimes just look at Venus as just, it's okay, she represents females and women and love and all the nice pleasures of life. But how often do we see Venus as the planet that's uniting material and the divine together? I think if we go into the mythology of Venus, it tells us a lot. Aphrodite, how she was born. We start to see these meanings start really to come in. Mars, circle of spirit, projecting outward as an arrow, representing action, desire, and assertion. Jupiter, the crescent over the cross of matter, expansion through faith and wisdom. So Jupiter allows us to expand because the spirit is on top of matter. But when it's the other way around, like we say, Saturn, you've got to bear your cross. So there's some also Judeo-Christian influences here as well. Because when you think of cross, you think, well, Christianity, Christ, right? Lessons through limitation. And then we have Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, which are more latter. I mean, people have ascribed meaning to them, you know. Astrology and alchemy, quite interesting for any of you guys who are into alchemy. They've also played a huge part in also ascribing certain meanings and encoded meanings to the glyphs also as well. And also to metals, of course. There's nothing new. So, practical application. Recognizing glyphs' origins deepens chart interpretation. I invite you to, when you are doing a chart next time, or when you're looking at your own, try not to see it as, oh, Saturn in my third house, I'm going to have difficulty with my siblings. Yeah, okay, that may well be true. That may manifest like that. But perhaps it's also showing you something more deeper if you really start getting into the meaning of who Saturn Chronos is and what is the symbol saying. Yeah, matter over spirit. So there may be something, there's something about matter being over spirit. It's having a burden on the spirit. And because it's in the house of the topic of siblings, that's where you are experiencing it, which you say, oh, I hate my older brother, older sister, whatever you will, for those of you who have it, you may not have it. Each particular planetary placement is telling us something on a very, very profound level. It's opening up a door into a whole different universe. I remember days in the CPA, they used to have workshops Darby's here, she can testify. One day, for the whole day, from 9 till 5, one planet, just speaking on the sun, nothing else. It's like, really? You're going to speak on the sun for the whole day? When are we going to get to the moon? Because the layers, the interpretation, the door in terms of which it opens is quite profound. Symbols reveal spiritual psychology encoded in astrology also as well. Is Nick here? Because he'd have a go at me. What is spirituality? You all know Nick. What do we mean by spiritual? What does the word spirit mean? Well, to put it simply, or the way I would phrase it, it's, again, something which provides meaning for us, something which connects us with something greater than ourselves. This is what spiritual means for me. I'll give you my definition. Don't care what you say. So everybody's spiritual. May not be aware of it. We may go about it in different ways. But spirituality is something which I feel when we're doing something spiritual, we're doing something that others can benefit from it. It can influence other people for the better. And that is what spiritual actually essentially is. Psychology, which we know, again, the word psyche, soul, again, we're back to spirit. Sometimes these words can be elusive, hence why I asked if Nick was here. Because normally he's always questioning, what is soul? Hasn't he asked you yet? He's always asking me. So, rounding it up, the conclusion. The planetary symbols used in astrology today are a result of ancient Mesopotamia and Egyptian cosmology. I would also invite you to perhaps maybe look into the views and the understandings of how they understood the planets in those days also as well. Go into the mythology. Egyptian mythology is extremely rich. It's layers upon layers. It's phenomenal. Mesopotamian, Hellenistic synchronism, blending Greek philosophy with astrology also as well, is also a part of our astrology which we use today. Medieval alchemical symbolism is also embedded in it. Renaissance standardization and Hermetic revival, modern astronomical discoveries and psychological interpretations also are all a part of it. Each glyph is a sacred shorthand of the cosmos. That's what a symbol is. It's a sacred shorthand. It's a key. Hence why we use words like keywords. Keyword opens up a door into another realm. Realm into the unconscious. There's so much there. A visual language of spirit, soul, and matter that connects astrology not only to history, but also to deep metaphysical wisdom. I think I've nearly finished. So, conclusion. Planetary glyphs evolved from ancient mythic symbols into modern standardized signs. So, look at where your symbols originate from. Quite interesting. I'm very interested in the Saturn, how that got to that. Yeah. What the heck? What's that? I mean, I don't know, it looks mountainy. Maybe Capricorn. So it's quite interesting. I mean, with some of the other ones, you can kind of see, I mean, look at Mars. I mean, that's the symbol for Aries, right? Mm. And then we've got a bit something similar today. Again, Venus, as I said, I think they just wanted to make the Pope happy. Stick across that. And Mercury there also as well comes in too. But it's quite interesting to see how things evolved. The sun also as well, it's still something that I often I take this and just meditate on that. What is that sun all about? Again, light, a comet, perhaps, fireball, perhaps, it'll be a comet, I guess. Shooting star. So many different variations. When I first saw this, I actually thought this was Mars. Quite phallic. It is quite phallic. So quite interesting. The moon has been consistent, just that's been turned the other way around. Why that is waning, waxing.
We're all right-handed now.
But were they left-handed then? Well, I mean, that could be a part of it. That could be a part of it. But I truly believe that there is something there in the collective that is shifting, right? And hence why if we were able to come back in 200-300 years from now, if we were able to wake up Ptolemy or Dorotheus, Vatius Valens, they'll say, what the heck have you guys done? What's this crap? They would know what this is. And same if in 100, 200 years time, if we were to come, they're probably going to be using different symbols. It's going to evolve again. Things are going to get standardized and they're going to add more meaning to it as well. So it will still carry its original meaning, can still carry its original meaning, but more can be added, other different perspectives. So there's nothing at all wrong with that. Further reading. You're all familiar with these books. Ancient Astrology, Theory and Practice by Demetria George. Great book, volume 1 and 2. But she goes into it. The History of Western Astrology. Nick, he's not here, is he? He's on his way. Oh, God. It's going to kill me. I'll be gone by then. But that's a great book. Alchemy and Mysticism by Alexander Robb, also as well, quite interesting. And there are more. There's other books out there also as well, which I would highly recommend. I think that's it. I know they're not allowed to take questions, are they? So that's okay.
Thank you so much, Israel. That was an amazing summary, I think, of all of us. I think a lot of us knew a lot of the details, but the way to put it together was quite amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm not allowed to ask questions.
See me at the bar.
This is the tradition to say this at the end of every class of what has been said for the last 56 years. I'm not allowed to ask questions, but he will be very happy to see you at the bar. He has duties to perform as well. Now, where is Wendy?
At the bar. She's doing her duty.
We have to, I think she's going to get something, because we have to now choose the Harvey Award. Now,
We're still on time, yeah?
yeah, we're okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just give a little introduction to this while we're on. When Charles Harvey, I'll say a little bit more about tomorrow night. So Charles was a great bridge from Charles Carter to, with John Addy, to the 20th century.
Oh, yes, yes.
The 20th century development of astrology did so much for astrology, and unfortunately, he died at the age of 60 in the year 2000. His last God had personally, and he left a great gap in our community. And he, we wanted to keep his memory alive, and so we had a chat and decided to create what we called the Harvey. Now, the notable thing about Charles was he gave exceptional service to astrology. And so we decided that it would be the Charles Harvey Award for exceptional service to astrology that will be awarded every year to someone who had given in in the view of the APA schools and organisations, etc., service to astrology. And the APAE is the faculty, all the various other teaching schools, the association, the lodge, and they are voted by a system of voting I only wish we had in this country, which is the one single preference transferable vote. So you vote 1, 2, 3, 4, whoever you select. This meant that a small group of people could have quite a few votes and we could get a result. So that's how it all happens. And this year I had the privilege to summarise the people who've been nominated. They're nominated by each of the schools if they wish, and then the voting is done by all of the schools, and then Israel will have the privilege of presenting the award.
Oh. I was a shock. I was only thinking, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I'm sorry, you're desperate tonight. You have to wait a little bit long. I should have had this out at the page. If you have your program with you, I do encourage you to go to the appropriate page in the program, which is page 20. And this year we have four nominations. Stephen Roy, who's been a kind of person who's been with the community since I started. He wrote some incredible books on astrology and transformation, but he's always refused to come to conference. Every year, someone says, "Oh, why don't you get Stephen Roy stuff?" I said, "No, I'm not going to speak for a So, but he's done a great service in bringing the psychological astrology into the mind of many people. And this year, he's been nominated by the Astrology College. He's running teaching colleges. Sorry? Sorry, sorry, see, do you want to say sorry? I got that wrong, sorry. Okay, astrologycollege.com. Thank you, Jean. Astrologycollege.com. Nominated Stephen Roy. The Astrology Lodge of London nominated Margaret Carfield, who of course you all know runs Wessex Astrology, has done for many years and has enabled the publication of many books. Now Margaret doesn't only enable the publication and publish, she also is a great helper. In fact, all my books, I developed the method of publishing them by Margaret's generosity in telling me how to do it, and she's done that for many people. So that's a great service, I think. And then, of course, we have the treasurer par excellence, Radicality, who's a treasurer not only of the association, but large, and does tremendous devoted work that enables all of us to be financially viable when we do our astrological activities. And lastly, the American astrologer translator, Ben Knight, who's I just don't know. I mean, I know that Ben has done lots of translations from Latin into English of works that had never been translated before, and I met him before and conference we were at. And he says, "Oh, I'd like to learn Arabic in order to translate straight from the Arabic." And they said, "Well, why don't you go and such? They may give you a grant to help you do this," and they did. And then about 3 years later, he published all these books in Arabic. It's just a remarkable event that has given lots of knowledge to us. So I hope you don't mind me summarising these briefly. Do read a full statement by the schools who have recommended the School of Traditional Astrology recommended Ben Knight. Now, I told you that the astrology and the nomination of Janka was from the Astrological Association and the Astrological Association of Professional Astrologers International and the Qualified Honorary Practitioner. So that's who the nominations are. Wendy.
Israel.
Oh no, Wendy giving the envelope, but Israel.
So, oh, you're gonna. Dun, dun, dun. This like the Oscar moment, is it?
And the winner is
Stephen Aroro and Margaret. Margaret, is it Cahill?
Cahill.
Cahill. Sorry. So two people have got it.
Yeah.
We've got two winners.
I can show you this. Yeah, it's not. Neither of them are here, but they are online.
Are they online?
Margaret is
Online?
online.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Roy, get in here.
Yeah. So, yeah, they are online.
they're here.
So,
Yeah, let
So
me help.
Margaret,
Um,
Stephen,
can,
Let me help. Let me help.
we might be able to get it up there.
Margaret, stay there.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's yours, year one.
I don't know.
You want to say a few words, Margaret?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just amazed. I'm really humbled, and I'm honoured to have so many incredible authors. I'm stunned. Thank you so much for nominating me. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Stephen Arroyo couldn't be with us because he is travelling at this time. So all nominees are invited to attend. So yeah, we couldn't be here. So well done. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
All the nominees. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Margaret, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
She's not in the
Is Jupiter doing anything in your chart at the moment?
Yeah, it's transiting my midheaven. It's just left my Venus in the 9th house. And it's heading for my sun in the 10th house, so that's pretty amazing. Thank you, Jupiter.
Yeah, that's it. An exalted Jupiter as well. So
Absolutely.
you have been exalted.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Well, have a lovely evening. You have the rest of the evening free, but remember you have an incredible task of attendances tomorrow. So, thanks yourselves, but don't be frightened to enjoy yourself tonight. Bar is open. Don't have to go there, but have a good time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we've done it.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. No, thank you.
So